we used to be rich, going back 60, 70 years, but our per capita income has been in steady decline over the last several decades, despite many efforts to reverse course and to transform our economy. Unfortunately, that trajectory remains. Our headline GDP growth has been decent, but in the main, that is because headline GDP growth, at least over the last 2 or 3 decades, has been held up by strong inward flows of migration. It doesn't mean that we've had stronger per capita GDP growth. So that's a fundamental challenge facing New Zealand, is that we are not strengthening our income per person. We are not converging to other rich or advanced economies who have much higher per capita income than we do, including Australia. We have talked a lot about it over many decades, but unfortunately we haven't yet converged on a policy approach or a consensus on what to do and pursued that meaningfully. So at the moment, we are not making progress towards what I think is a reasonable aspiration of converging back towards a rich group of countries. So we have talked a lot, I guess, since the reforms of the 1980s about transforming our economy, moving up the value chain and the like. But our export structure today is, with the exception perhaps of tourism, pretty much the same as it was in the 1980s. Primary sector dominates, still largely at the commodity end of the spectrum, as opposed to doing lots of onshore processing. So it hasn't changed as much as you would imagine. Our economic structure is recognisably the same. Whereas if you look at other small advanced economies, even those with strong primary sector bases, they have done much more by way of transformation in terms of moving into high innovation, high technology parts of the economy. And there's no great secret in terms of how they have done that. It's strong, sustained, at-scale investment in skills, in research and innovation, in universities and other research institutions, and supporting their firms in various ways to expand into international markets. New Zealand hasn't made that a priority. We talk a lot about research, innovation and skills, but we don't invest nearly enough to actually make a dent. And so if we don't invest, if we don't make this a priority, you get the outcomes that we observe. New Zealand looks very, very different than other high-performing small advanced economies. There's no great dispute about that. There's much research and evidence and discussion about this. People know it should be a priority, but for many reasons, successive governments haven't invested behind it, and we have the results that you might expect. Against that. But this is something we can't simply rely on elected politicians to deliver for us. Yes, they have a clearly very important role, but it's up to all of us, business, labour movement, civil society, to come up with a shared view and communicate what we think should happen, how it could be done, develop some ideas. That's what being in a democracy is. It's responsibility, it's incumbent on all of us. So I would love to see politicians much more actively engaging with the strategic direction of New Zealand, being a lot more transparent and clear about the challenges and the opportunities confronting us, and are both positives and negatives in that respect. I think we can demand a lot more of our politicians, but it's not simply their fault. They are responding to their perception of what people want. And I think there's a big role for civil society, for business communities and for others to put in place compelling problem diagnosis and, more importantly, ideas on what can be done. They're putting in place policies that work in a New Zealand context, given the challenges and opportunities that we face. So this is a shared responsibility. The great thing about small countries, small economies like New Zealand, is that they can be changed. It's not like trying to shift a supertanker or an aircraft carrier. New Zealand is like a speedboat. It requires a view on how we are going to compete, what the priorities are, a willingness to execute. But once we land on that, you can move a small economy much, much more rapidly than larger jurisdictions. And so for me, even in a more challenging world, from the Strait of Hormuz to the US, China, and all points in between, there are enormous opportunities out there for small economies like New Zealand. We just have to position ourselves to capture those opportunities, to do it with meaning, with scale, with speed, with strategic intent. If we do that, then I think the sky is the limit for New Zealand.